I had been a devoted partner to my girlfriend Sarah for 10 years. When I took her to see my parents one last time after their accident, she left. Her reason? The senior Mario had broken his leg and needed her care. Watched her walk away casually and smiled bitterly. This time, I wouldn't wait for her anymore. I got a call from the hospital while I was having dinner with Sarah at a restaurant. The cold voice told me I needed to come see my parents for the last time. They'd been in an accident on their way to meet us, and now they were clinging to life, waiting for me. My hands trembled as I grabbed Sarah's, but she impatiently pushed me away. "Why aren't your parents here yet? Didn't you say everything was arranged?" "Let me be clear. I'm not willing to marry into your family just to work like a slave. Show me some respect, okay? Sarah, my parents, they're in a car accident. They're barely hanging on. Let's go. I need to get to the hospital," I said, grabbing her and heading for the door. It was a hot summer day, the air thick and suffocating. Suddenly, she yanked her hand from mine and answered her phone, her sweet voice like nails on a chalkboard. "Okay, Senior. Be careful. I'll be right there." It was him again. My mind was a jumble as I fumbled for my car keys, but Sarah took them. "Robert, Mario broke his leg, and there's no one to take care of him. Lend me the car for a bit." Felt like the cruelest joke. Tears welled up in my eyes and fell, uncontrollably. "My parents are on their deathbeds, and you're telling me you need the car to go see your senior?" Her face paled for a moment, then she stomped her foot and turned away. "The hospital probably exaggerates things, but I've already seen Mario's leg in the picture. Can you stop being so jealous?" I didn't want to argue anymore. I snatched the keys and got into the car. If Sarah wasn't coming with me today, then from now on, we'd have nothing to do with each other. 10 years of being her simp was enough. Seeing my resolve, she sneered before turning and walking away confidently. I didn't have time to think. I sped off to the hospital. I rushed to the front desk, told them my parents' names, and quickly found their room. My hands trembling, I stood in front of the door, praying that nothing had happened to them. Suddenly, the door opened, and a body covered in white cloth was wheeled out. In that moment, I felt like the sky was falling. But then I heard someone, inside, calling my name. I stepped inside. My parents lay in their beds, their arms and legs in casts, but they didn't look critically ill. A weight lifted from my chest, and I rushed over. My mom wiped tears from my face, telling me not to worry. I held their hands, feeling grateful. There's nothing more important than family and their safety. My mom, still weak, asked where Sarah was. She said they wanted to apologize for being late. I clenched my fists and forced a smile. "It's fine, Mom. She's not upset." I wanted to tell them that Sarah and I are over, but I didn't want them to feel guilty. I'll tell them later. After I finished everything in the room, I stepped out to get some food for my parents. Just then, my phone buzzed a message from Sarah with some pictures attached. One showed Mario's leg wrapped in bandages, and the other was a selfie of her looking flawless. Her message read, "Robert, your attitude today was awful. I like that new bag from Chanel." I scoffed and laughed mockingly. Everyone knew that Robert, the oldest son of the Sue family, had loved Sarah for 10 years. Since she transferred to our elementary school, I had followed her everywhere, doing whatever she asked. When we got together, I never neglected her. Every time a new designer bag came out, I bought it for her without her asking. But now, looking back, it felt more disgusting than swallowing dirt. She hadn't asked once about my parents' condition. In fact, I'd planned to propose to her after dinner tonight. Walking forward with my head down, I didn't expect to bump into anyone. I looked up and saw a young woman in a white coat, a doctor. But even with her white coat, her impressive figure was hard to miss. Her almond-shaped eyes sparkled as she looked at me. Then, with an apologetic smile, she gently tugged at the sleeve of a nearby nurse. "Sorry, Mr. Sue, I'm new here." When I saw the ambulance arrive, I panicked and gave a false alarm. It wasn't intentional. Her voice sounded familiar. As soon as she spoke, I recognized her as the young woman who had called me earlier. She introduced herself as Sophia, my parents' primary doctor. "There's no need to worry. Your parents just have some scrapes and fractures, nothing too serious." I nodded and was about to leave when I noticed the nurse beside her, still trembling with fear. I paused and tried to lighten the mood. No need to be so scared. Just don't make that mistake again. Seeing them relax a little, I didn't linger. But then, I felt someone grab my arm, a soft, gentle touch pressing against it. Sophia smiled warmly. Robert, aren't you going to add your primary doctor on WeChat? For some reason, she felt familiar, though I couldn't quite place why. I nodded and quickly added her on WeChat. Just as I finished, Sarah's call came through. I declined it, but she kept calling. I wasn't going to give in, so I blocked her. That's when my friend sent me a photo from the school forum. It showed Mario with Sarah half, her body draped over him, both looking flushed and not quite right. Most comments underneath mocked me. After all, it was laughable that Robert, the heir to a major company, had been such a simp for so many years and ended up with nothing. I opened my social media, deleted all photos and posts about Sarah, and made an official announcement. I'm single. Please don't bother me. After posting, I turned off my phone, grabbed the takeout I had ordered, and took it upstairs. Once everything was settled, my parents fell asleep, and I finally had a moment to breathe. Today was supposed to be the happiest day introducing Sarah to my parents. Sharing a lovely meal, going for a walk to strengthen our bond, and then proposing to her in front of them. But now, none of that was going to happen. From this moment on, both the name Sarah and the person herself would completely disappear from my life. In the quiet hospital room, my phone rang at the worst possible moment. The caller ID showed an unknown number. Afraid of waking my parents, I quickly answered and stepped outside. The familiar voice on the other end was Sarah shouting, Robert, what do you mean by that? Why did you say that on social media? Do you have any idea how many people are laughing at me right now? I didn't say a word and she kept rambling on. Basically, she was saying that if I apologized, bought her the latest designer bag, and publicly announced our relationship again, she'd forgive me graciously. I was about to light a cigarette when I remembered I was in a hospital. After she finally finished, I chuckled. Sarah, you haven't? Even asked me once how my parents are doing, I said. There was a brief silence before she raised her voice again. Well, how are uncle and auntie? You're so calm, so they must be fine. I told you the hospital always exaggerates. I didn't want to explain anything more. Not far away. Sophia was walking toward me with a medical chart. Suddenly, a vengeful thought crossed my mind. Without hesitation, I said into the phone, I have a new girlfriend now. Don't call me again. I quickly muted the call and asked Sophia to pretend to be my girlfriend. She looked a bit startled, but nodded quickly. When I turned the sound back on, I could hear Sarah's mocking tone. There's no way you could fall for someone else. Hello, I'm Robert's girlfriend. I hope you'll stop calling him from now on, Sophia said softly, but firmly. For some reason, her calmness eased my restless heart. After that, Sarah abruptly hung up. I looked at Sophia, still processing everything, until she waved her hand in front of me, snapping me back to reality. Hello, my boyfriend, she said sweetly, her smile radiant. Sorry I got caught up in the moment and used you as a cover, she added softly. She slowly moved closer, and I caught a faint scent of her perfume.
Ow.
Her face was so close I could see the fine hairs on her skin. My breathing slowed, and just as I was about to step back, she suddenly retreated herself. It's okay. There's plenty of time for the future, she said before being called away hurriedly by a nurse. For several days, I didn't go to school. I stayed beside my parents, taking care of them. On the school forum, they even started a betting pool, guessing when I, Robert, would beg Sarah to take me back. I saw that Sarah bet on 7 days. Others followed her lead, betting the same. I chuckled. On what grounds did they think I would keep being Sarah's sucker? Without hesitation, I added an option. Never, I, Robert, will never have anything to do with Sarah again. Then, another unknown number called. I immediately hung up. Over the past few days, every unknown call had been Sarah trying to contact me in different ways. Counting the days, today was exactly the 7th day. Sophia, holding the medical report, came as usual to check on my parents, and they couldn't stop smiling at her. I suppressed my emotions as I watched her gently tend to them. On the 3rd day of my parents' hospital stay, I told them about the breakup. Though it was sudden, they were business people after a brief moment of surprise. They accepted the truth. When she finished the checkup and was about to leave, the door suddenly swung open. Sarah rushed in with bags in her hands, smiling brightly as she ran toward me. After she put down her things, she reached out and gently grabbed my arm, then introduced herself to my parents. "Hello, Uncle, Auntie. I'm Sarah. I'm so glad you're both okay," she said warmly. The room went silent. I quickly pulled my hand away and took a step back. Sarah's expression changed instantly, but she didn't push any further. Sophia just quietly watched everything unfold. "Yes, my friend," I said, drawing a clear boundary while thanking Sarah for the gifts. My parents politely invited her to sit, and Sophia stood to the side, no longer planning to leave. "Auntie, Robert and I wanted to come see you sooner, but I had something come up that day, so I couldn't come with him," Sarah continued. "Robert also said that since we'll be family soon, you wouldn't mind." She kept talking, oblivious to the growing displeasure on my parents' faces. Strangely, in the past, I would have helped her cover any lies she told. I found her words unbearably disgusting. As Sarah spoke, she leaned closer to my mom, almost knocking over the IV tube. Luckily, Sophia quickly stepped in. "Please don't be too loud in the hospital," she said coldly, her voice carrying the authority of a doctor. I sighed in relief, ready to take Sarah outside to set things straight, but she suddenly stood up, pointing at Sophia in a fit of rage. "Are you the one who made that phone call the other day?" she demanded. Sophia didn't deny it. She smiled faintly and nodded. In the next moment, Sarah lost control and charged at her as if to attack. I immediately stepped in front of Sophia, grabbing Sarah's raised hand and pushing it away. "Sarah, stop acting crazy," I said firmly, never before so certain that the person before me was unworthy. "Robert, you'll regret this." Sarah's eyes turned red, tears nearly falling. With those harsh words, she turned and stormed out. The warm, cheerful atmosphere in the room was shattered. I left in silence. 2 days later, my parents were finally discharged. I hired a caregiver to look after them, and only after I felt at ease did I return to school. School forum was as lively as ever. Passing by the basketball court, I saw Mario Hayes, quite handsome, clean-cut, with a fresh face. He could play basketball well and had a way with words. Just as I was about to head back to the teaching building, I noticed a group of people whispering. Coincidentally, they were talking about me. I looked up and saw Sarah in a revealing cheerleader outfit, wildly cheering for Mario. Suddenly, I remembered how she used to scoff whenever I asked her to attend my piano competitions. And now, here she was, dressed like that, shouting encouragement. At the top of her lungs, "Tisk, really not worth it." I lowered my head, pretending to look at my phone, and quickened my pace. But a pair of straight legs appeared in front of me, and without looking, I knew it was Sarah. "Robert, how long are you going to keep this up?" "Keep this up," she said, almost mockingly. I almost wanted to laugh. "Move," I frowned, about to lose patience. A crowd had already gathered around us, many of them holding up their phones to take pictures. I just wanted to leave. Loved being the center of attention, but I didn't. "If you're really that angry, I'll apologize," she said, her voice trembling. "That day was an emergency. You have no idea how fragile Mario was when I arrived. Fragile Mario was fragile. That somehow meant my parents' situation didn't compare to a random upperclassman." I sneered, looking down at her. "Sarah, I don't want to be harsh, but you should be able to tell by now that I don't like you anymore." I said loudly enough for the people around us to gasp. Her face paled, and her hand trembled as she gripped my wrist. I frowned, glancing disdainfully at the outfit she was wearing, then looked away. "I didn't wear this on purpose," she said, her voice filled with anxiety, but her words full of holes. "Mario said no one was cheering for him, and I didn't want him to lose face." Her words sounded insincere. Did she still think I was the fool I used to be? Mario put down the basketball and walked over. I just quietly watched him. He had always found various excuses to ask for Sarah's help, but anyone with eyes could see how deliberate it all was. "If you have something to say, say it. Why bully a girl?" Mario stepped forward, acting like he was standing up for justice, which almost made me laugh. A perfect match. These two really are a perfect match. My phone rang at an inconvenient moment. When I checked, it was my advisor calling. I was about to leave, but the crowd had already closed in. Sarah was still crying her heart out, looking like a victim. I was at my wit's end, ready to push through the crowd and run. Then a familiar voice came over the loudspeaker. A famous international star is filming at the east gate of the school right now. In an instant, most of the onlookers rushed away. Sarah collapsed in tears on Mario's shoulder. I turned, my head away, no longer watching. My advisor wanted me to organize the badminton competition. As the president of the badminton club, I naturally had to take responsibility. My parents had just been discharged from the hospital, and I was running between home and school, overwhelmed with exhaustion. I had a stack of sign-up sheets on my desk when Sophia appeared in front of me. I thought I was seeing things. "Sign me up," she said in her usual soft voice, smiling as always. Seeing my confusion about her presence, she explained that she had been accepted into the school's exchange program and was here to bring me the results of my parents' follow-up checkup. I nodded and added her name to the list. "I want to sign up too." Out of nowhere, Sarah appeared, grabbing the sign-up sheet and filling out her name. After she finished, she glared at Sophia with hostility. I knew her possessiveness was kicking in. In the past, I had rejected all relationships with other girls for her, always keeping a cold distance from others, but she had always had people around her. I never minded before, thinking that no matter what, I would always be her. Number one, her most important person in her life. I had stayed with her for 10 years, giving her everything I could, but in the end, it all seemed so laughable. To her, my parents' lives were worth less than Mario's leg. At that thought, the last trace of pity I had for her vanished. "There's no chance, Sarah. There will never be a chance again." Sarah held a bottle of water, and after signing up, she handed it to me, trying to please. I stared at it silently, not responding. Her phone, lying on the table, lit up. I glanced at it casually. It was a message from Mario. "Sarah R. You here yet? The movie is about to start." I lowered my eyes, hiding all my emotions. Sarah hurriedly picked up her phone, making sure I hadn't seen it, then spoke again. "Robert, the advisor needs to talk to me. I'll find you tomorrow." She had used that same lame excuse countless times before. Looked up quietly. Staring at her, "Tara, no one likes love that can't see the light of day." After Sarah left, Sophia sat down beside me. Today, since the admissions officer was off, I was here to help out. But badminton isn't exactly a popular sport, so Sophia signing up was already a help in its own way. The atmosphere grew quiet, and I didn't know what to say. "You going to thank me?" she asked. I turned my head as she continued. "I just saved you from that boiling pot earlier." Suddenly, I remembered that familiar voice on the loudspeaker. It had been Sophia. I smiled and nodded. "Really thank you for that," I said. Just as I was about to make a polite remark, she quickly added, "How about taking a walk by the river with me this weekend? I haven't been back in a long time, and I want to see if it's still the same as it was." The river, I felt a bit dazed. That was where I first fell in love with Sarah. I was young back then, a little mischievous. I loved skipping stones by the river. The first time I saw Sarah was there. She wore a tattered dress, and her face was dirty. She told me her family fought all the time, and she often didn't have enough to eat. That day, I took all the pocket money I'd saved, bought her a beautiful dress, and took her to a fancy restaurant. She ate voraciously, then squinted and said, "Thank you, you're so kind." That was probably when I decided I wanted to take care of her for the rest of my life. Years later, when I wanted to bring her back to the river, she scoffed. "What's there to see? It's just a river, nothing more." Sophia waved her hand in front of my face, pulling me back. From my memories, "So, are you coming or not?" she asked again. This time I nodded. The badminton competition was set for Friday, and quite a few people showed up. It seemed the publicity team had really put in some effort. The tournament was single elimination, so the beginners were quickly knocked out. I had originally thought Sophia was a novice, but to my surprise, her skills were impressive. She wore her hair in a high ponytail, revealing her elegant collarbones. Every move she made had a goddess-like grace. The younger students had already started cheering her on. Soon, only Sarah and Sophia remained in the women's bracket. I didn't know how long Sophia had been practicing, but I knew exactly how long Sarah had trained, because I had taught her myself. The day she asked me to teach her badminton, I asked why. She stammered something about just being interested. I didn't think much of it, so I arranged a time and trained her with all my heart. 3 days later, I saw her on the court rallying with Mario, exchanging shot after shot, and that's when I realized why she wanted to learn. Back then I was angry, but Sarah just frowned and accused me of making a big deal out of nothing. It's just badminton. With him, why do you have to be so unreasonable? Can't you stop being so paranoid? It really bothers me. If I were involved with him, it would have happened by now, don't you think? The rest of my words were swallowed back down. Sarah turned her head toward the crowd, and when she realized the cheers weren't for her, she frowned. She was angry because she always wanted to be the center of attention. I worried a bit for Sophia because a furious Sarah could be difficult to handle, but, as it turned out, my worries were unnecessary. Sophia's skills were clearly far beyond Sarah's. Maybe others couldn't see it, thinking they were evenly matched. But I had been trained in all sorts of skills from a young age, and every move Sophia made reflected the professional training I had received. Sure enough, it wasn't long before Sarah started to tire. Suddenly, she stumbled, fell to the ground, clutching her leg, and shouted in pain. The crowd started to stir, and Sophia quickly rushed over to check on her. I followed the crowd toward where Sophia was handling the situation. She looked at Sarah's injured leg, examined it briefly, then let out a sigh of relief. It's just a minor sprain, nothing serious. Suddenly, Sarah shoved Sophia away, her face full of anger. Don't touch me, she snapped. Mario immediately stepped in, picking Sarah up and shouting at Sophia. You're not a professional, so why are you pretending to be one? If something goes wrong, are you going to take responsibility? His tone was full of disdain, and Sarah had pushed Sophia hard enough to make her stumble. Couldn't hold back my anger anymore. I helped Sophia up and glared coldly at Mario and Sarah. Injuries during a match aren't unusual. Sophia is a doctor. If you don't believe her, you're free to go see someone else. And to Sarah, I warned, don't let me see you lay a hand on Sophia again. Since I entered this school, I'd never said a harsh word to anyone. Maybe that's why people felt free to turn my private life into entertainment. But they had forgotten it was never an ordinary person. If I wanted someone to pay the price, it would be easy. Sure enough, Mario's face changed instantly, and he couldn't say a word for a long time. Simply carried Sarah to the infirmary. In Mario's arms, Sarah seemed to be over her pain, whining that she wanted to walk and demanding I carry her instead. I didn't bother responding. I just brushed the dust off Sophia's back. Are you okay? This feeling? I asked, concerned after everything that had happened during the competition I organized. Sophia had kindly helped, only to be met with ungratefulness. It had to be handled properly. She shook her head, indicating she was fine, then habitually tucked her hair behind her ear. Faint birthmark behind her ear caught my attention. I felt like I'd seen it somewhere before, but I couldn't quite place it. My phone buzzed with a message from Mario. Sarah was throwing a tantrum, refusing to take her medicine unless I came to see her. I frowned, thought for a moment, then replied swiftly, then let her suffer, because of the incident. During the competition, the mixed doubles matches were postponed. Sophia came to me, saying she had no partner, so I naturally agreed to help her as a way of thanking her. To practice our coordination, we rented a court and practiced relentlessly. But for some reason, every time I got close to her, I felt a strange sense of familiarity, something I couldn't quite describe. After practicing enough, we sat side by side to rest. Her hair was damp with sweat, sticking to her skin. Once again, the birthmark behind her ear caught my attention. I found myself staring, lost in thought, until our faces grew uncomfortably close, snapping me back to reality. Sophia looked excited, even leaning in and pulling her hair back to show me clearly. Look closely, Robert. Really. Look at this. Mark behind my ear, she said. I looked at her in confusion. Her eyes sparkled with excitement almost too much. But I couldn't resist the feeling of familiarity, so I examined it carefully. Still nothing came to mind. Well, what do you think? Does it remind you of anything? She asked. I frowned and shook my head. It looks familiar, but I can't say more than that, I replied. Her brightness dimmed instantly. When we parted ways, Sophia still seemed off, but I didn't think too much of it. Once Sarah recovered, the competition was rescheduled. This time, Sarah paired up with Mario. The final match drew a much larger crowd than before. Our tangled four-way relationship had become prime gossip material. The match started, and it quickly became obvious how much our professional training gave Sophia and me an edge. Playing against Sarah and Mario was laughably easy. The result was predictable. We won. As I was walking out with Sophia, Sarah blocked our path. Her face showed reluctance, but finally, she seemed to gather the courage to speak. Robert, I'm willing to listen to whatever you say from now on. I'm confessing to you again right here and now. Will you be with me? The crowd started cheering again, most of them expecting me to follow Sarah's lead as usual. 8R. You done? If so, I'm taking Sophia out to dinner. Have some self-respect. Sarah's face visibly shifted from disappointment to anger. In a final gesture, she grabbed Mario's hand and dramatically walked away with him. My head feeling more indifferent than ever. With the tournament over, I finally got a break. A lot had happened recently, as if everything had changed in an instant. Many things had been let go. My parents were busy running the company, and I enjoyed the peace and quiet. Aside from occasional texts from Sarah, who kept changing her number to message me. Lately, things had escalated somehow. She had convinced Mario to plead on her behalf. Even Mario was asking me to give her another chance. Finally, I got fed up and agreed to meet Mario for a serious talk. But I made it clear that if I saw Sarah, I would leave immediately. Mario chose a private room at a quiet restaurant. It wasn't cheap, but I vaguely remembered his family wasn't exactly well off. Sitting down, I got straight to the point. What do you want to talk about? Mario poured himself a drink, drank it in one gulp, then offered a helpless smile. Sarah said she realized she can't live without you. She asked me to come and explain. I smiled back. Explain what? That there's nothing going on between us. It's all just a misunderstanding. He paused, then let out a long sigh before continuing. It was all my one-sided feelings. It had nothing to do with her. I frowned, studying him. Despite the sincere look, on his face, something felt off. There was a strange vibe I couldn't quite put my finger on. For the last time, I will never be with Sarah again. If you really like her, you shouldn't let her keep making a fool of herself. It's disgusting. How I felt about everything involving Sarah now. 10 years of feelings, and in the end, I could only call it disgusting. She wasn't worth it, and I finally realized that. Mario and I didn't part on good terms. On my way home, Sophia texted me to meet her by the river. When I arrived, it was dusk. Sophia stood by the water, her long hair gently blowing in the wind. Her figure was graceful. I walked over slowly, noticing she didn't seem in a good mood. Robert, is Sarah the only person you remember? I looked at her, confused. She turned to face me, and that's when I saw tears streaking down her face. Robert, do you remember saving a little girl by this river? Face, feeling a vague sense of familiarity. Just as I was about to speak, she suddenly jumped into the water. I gasped, and immediately dove in after her. The icy cold water cut through my skin, and in that instant, I remembered who Sophia was. The birthmark behind her ear was the mark of our childhood promise. When we were kids, I called her Little Ear. Her family lived next door to mine, and I used to take her out to play all the time. One day, while we were skipping stones, she slipped and fell into the river. I jumped in to save her. The first thing she did when she woke up was slap me. Then she hugged me and cried. I was confused but patted her back to comfort her. Later, her family was moving abroad, and before leaving, she came to me with her childish voice, asking me to look behind her ear. She said she had a beautiful flower there, and that I should use it to recognize her when we met again. As a kid, I nodded earnestly, promising I'd never forget her. But as an adult, I shook my head, completely forgetting her. Although it was summer when I pulled Sophia out of the water, she was still shivering from the cold. With a stern expression, I took her home. All the way back, she kept looking at me expectantly, asking the same thing. "Did you remember?" I was too angry to answer, but once I was sure she was settled, I softly said, "Yeah, I remembered." Little ear, Sophia, was overjoyed, but then she started crying again. I gently patted her back. Suddenly, Mario called. On the other end, he said Sarah had cut her wrists. Both Sophia and I were shocked. We rushed to the hospital, where Sarah was pale as a sheet. The doctor said it was a good thing she was brought in quickly, or things could have been much worse. Mario stood nearby, lost in thought. When he saw me looking at him, he immediately put on a worried expression. When Sarah woke up, I sat beside her. "Robert, I know I was wrong. Can't you stop this?" Her eyes started to fill with tears again, but I felt nothing inside. In the past, my love justified everything. Because I loved her, I chose to forgive her. But now, I no longer loved her, and I suddenly realized she wasn't as radiant as I once thought. Everything about her had been in some way my creation, and she had taken it all for granted. Maybe I truly loved that little girl from my childhood. But the woman standing in front of me now was someone I no longer recognized. "Please, just forgive me this once, okay? I'll listen to you from now on, and we'll be together, okay?" Her tone was pitiful, begging me repeatedly. I just looked at her quietly and shook my head at the end. "I don't love you anymore. The more you act like this, the more I despise you." That hurt her deeply. She let go of my hand, looking defeated. Without saying anything more, I got up and left the room. Sophia's hair still wasn't dry. She might catch a cold. That was the only thought running through my mind. When I got home, Sophia sat quietly, waiting for me to dry her hair. That's when I finally snapped back to reality. Something was wrong with me. Damn little ear. She's getting more beautiful every day. She looked more and more like my childhood friend. We grew closer after reconnecting with Sophia. I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but we became inseparable. We went to classes together, ate together, hung out all the time. The happiness I found with her was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. Naturally, we ended up together. Later, I took her out to sea on a yacht. The night sky was full of dazzling stars, and in that intoxicating moment, I asked her, "Will you regret this?" Her answer was steady and gentle. "No, I'll never regret it. It's not for my whole life." And that was that, a dark night, a strong wind, and everything fully indulged. When we got back, we met each other's parents. Since our families were well matched, everything went smoothly. The date of our engagement was coming up fast, and I felt closer and closer to happiness. I took Sophia to try on wedding dresses and personally picked the restaurant for the reception. Everything was going well until one day Sarah began pounding on my apartment door, begging to come in. It was pouring rain outside and I couldn't take it anymore. When I finally opened the door, I barely recognized the person standing there. Sarah's hair was a mess, her eyes dark with circles under them, and she looked painfully thin, almost like a ghost. "Robert, we're supposed to be the ones who are meant to be together. We've been together for 10 years. 10 years. How many more decades can I give to someone else?" She was sobbing, gasping for air between her words. Out of human decency, I poured her a glass of water. Then, sitting calmly on the sofa, I said, "Sarah, I loved you for 10 years too. But during those 10 years, you never once truly cherished me. You said you were out shopping with your girlfriends, but in reality, you went to a concert Mario invited you to. You took the money I gave you and used it to go out with him. You told me your family needed money, and I sent it to you without hesitation, only to find out you gave it all to Mario. On my birthday, I rejected everyone else because I wanted to spend the day with you. But in the end, you left me waiting alone at the restaurant all night. Do I need to keep going about where you were and who you were with that night? I looked at her, speaking slowly and clearly. There were plenty of other things I could have said. In many ways, I'd never been her first choice, but I'd been too naive to realize it back then. Sarah didn't say another word. She just sat on the floor crying. Her crying was starting to get on my nerves. What now? Sophia would be upset when she returned and saw the mess on the floor. Do you need something else? If not, please leave. I need to make dinner for Sophia. Sarah flinched, and before she left, she didn't forget to ask me for money. I laughed for a long time, 10 years of our relationship, and all she wanted now was money. But then I thought paying for peace and quiet was probably worth it. Without much hesitation, I transferred the money over. That image of Sophia walking toward me in her wedding dress is something I'll remember for the rest of my life. She was stunningly beautiful, and I personally slipped the ring onto her finger. Just as the ceremony was about to be finished, Sarah suddenly burst in. She looked even more terrifying than before, neither fully human nor a ghost, making everyone frown in disgust. Robert, give me money, or else I won't get any more stuff, and I'll be beaten to death. You need to give me money now. She was completely unhinged, lost in madness. Sophia was a little scared, so I gently held her and softly reassured her. The malice in Sarah's eyes only grew, as if she was ready to attack us at any second. The engagement celebration, which had been going so smoothly, was now ruined by this chaotic scene. I'm not the type to let things slide. Sarah was going to have to pay for this. Suddenly, Mario's face popped into my mind at the worst possible moment. Sure enough, once I laid out all the evidence in front of me, everything became clear. Sarah had become addicted to drugs, and it was all part of Mario's plan. For months, Mario had been asking her for money, pretending it was about some nonsense like spiritual enlightenment, all to control my thoughts. I couldn't believe such craziness. But the most absurd part was that Sarah actually believed him. At first, until Mario took advantage of her trust and introduced her to substances she should have never touched. From that moment, all her money flowed directly into Mario's hands. On top of that, Mario deceived her with false promises of lucrative investments, convincing her she could make a fortune. Sarah believed him, and that belief led to her complete downfall. I closed my eyes, looking at the photos in the report. There was no sign of the beautiful girl she used to be at school. Now she was lying on the floor, covered in bruises, barking, like a dog to entertain her exploiters. That's how she became Mario's money-making tool, no longer a source of wealth but a slave to his schemes. Mario had been clever from the start. He deliberately got close to Sarah because he knew I would give her money, and all he had to do was turn that money into his own, and clearly he succeeded. The door swung open, and Sophia entered with a heavy expression. Sarah's body is covered in injuries, almost no part of her is untouched, she said softly. I knew how kind-hearted Sophia was. Seeing Sarah in that state must have been incredibly hard for her. I walked over and gently embraced her, slowly offering comfort. It's okay, little ear. I'll take care of it, I whispered. She nodded and sighed. I looked at the documents on the table, already forming a plan in my mind. Sarah had run away. If she didn't make money, Mario would beat her. Mario was careful. He made sure not to leave any DNA or fingerprints when he hurt her. It was as if he knew this would all come to light someday, so he'd prepared in advance. Once again, I found myself in a private room with Mario, but this time, he didn't bother pretending anymore. He lounged back in his seat, his tone full of contempt. What's the matter, Su young master? Not enjoying your romantic life with your little doctor? Why bother calling me out? Don't. Tell me you've fallen for Sarah again? His words dripped with sarcasm, and I just smiled and shook my head. Mario, do you really think your plan was perfect? I stared him down, watching the fear flicker in his eyes. He was afraid I'd found the evidence to put him away. Honestly, I wasn't sure at first, but persistence pays off. Found the place where he had first assaulted Sarah. Maybe it was his first time, so he hadn't been careful enough to leave enough evidence to incriminate him. The small cabin by the river on the west side, does that ring any bells? His glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor, his eyes widening as he looked at me. Mario, You should have never forced a helpless woman to earn money for you. You've brought shame to all men, I said sharply. The arrest went smoothly. Faced with undeniable evidence, Mario broke down and confessed everything. Sarah was there during the trial. She had recovered quite a bit after some treatment, but the scars were still visible. Mario admitted that from the moment he met Sarah, his intentions were never pure. It wasn't love. It was always about money. And the quickest way to get money was through Sarah. Because I was generous with her, Sarah had money. Mario figured that with his looks, seducing Sarah would be easy. And unfortunately, he was right. Sarah believed him wholeheartedly. Next to me, Sophia quietly squeezed my hand. As Mario spoke, he suddenly turned to look at Sarah. She flinched, not even daring to meet his eyes. Mario continued, "Oh, and that day you broke up for good, I faked the cast at the hospital. There was nothing wrong with me, I was just broke. But who would have thought you'd be so pathetic? Not even able to hold on to Robert." I fought the urge to punch him. This scum didn't deserve to live. Sarah's disbelief turned into a breakdown, then into complete despair. Finally, she just fell silent, walking over to me with tears streaming down her face. I looked up and met her gaze. Her eyes were filled with sorrow and regret. "I'm sorry, Robert. I didn't appreciate you. I had the best love, the best person, but I took it all for granted. I always thought your love for me was something I deserved, that it was just how things were meant to be." Her voice cracked as she sobbed, tears falling in heavy drops. "But I forgot that no one is obligated to treat me so well. I threw you away because of this scum, and now I've lost you. I deserve this. I brought it all on myself. Robert, I regret it. I really, really regret it," she choked out, sobbing uncontrollably. Her fragile body collapsed to the ground. I just stood there, watching her silently. Suddenly, something inside me let go. This was the woman I'd loved for 10 years, but she didn't appreciate it. I knew I'd resented her for that. But seeing her like this, I suddenly felt like none of it mattered anymore. Let it all go. Besides, I already had my little ear by my side. Sophia tightened her grip on my hand, and I half laughed as I squeezed hers back. Mario was sentenced to death, and in the end, only his father came to see him. The old man, frail with age, approached with a tattered card in his hand. In a thick accent, he pleaded with the judge. "I've got money," my boy said. "Money can fix things. Did my boy make a mistake? I'll give you money. Just give me my boy back. Okay?" His voice cracked as he waved that worn card around. Mario no longer had the fearless look he once had. He just stared at his father, tears streaming down his face. "Dad, please don't do this. I'm the one who let you down, Dad," he whispered. I closed my eyes, unable to watch anymore. Finally, Sophia and I got married a year later. Little Ear looked absolutely beautiful in her wedding dress. We kept traveling back and forth. Often her parents lived abroad, and mine were here in the country. Eventually, we decided to bring her parents back to live with us. After all, there's no place better than home. Mario was sentenced to death, and Sarah left the country. But every year on my birthday, I still received a message at midnight wishing me well. That tradition never stopped. And one more thing, Little Ear is going to be a mom. I've also made sure that Mario's father is being taken care of. After all, they only had each other. With Mario gone, the old man's life would have been impossible otherwise. Little Ear has now become Big Ear, and she's going to have a baby girl. Looks like we're truly a big, happy family now.